Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk episode 600. No, what is it? I can't even remember. What does it say on the top? What was that? 698. That's it. This is the Music Technology Podcast. We talk about all things to do with music production, music technology, all kinds of stuff like that. And I just thought I would try a new thing today. We've got Andy switching today rather than me switching, although I'm having some technical issues with logging into the chat. Those of you who perhaps are watching on YouTube and Discord will see that we've got other chats coming in. So we've got IRC, we've got the YouTube as well. Let me make sure I've actually... Yeah, that's all right. That's all. It should be. Are we live? It seems to be. Anyway, whatever. But for some reason, my Restream chat is not loading up. Anyway, we'll just have to leave that for now. Okay. I'm flummoxed. Right, we've got guests this week. Obviously, those of you I haven't seen you for a little while. Yoad, Happy New Year. This is Yoad Nevo in his
Happy
studio.
New Year.
Nevo Sound. How are you, Yoad?
Yeah, good. Have had a good break, not very long, but I have a feeling that maybe I'm the only one who ever experienced the feeling that I had maybe too much to eat over Christmas. I don't know if anyone has ever experienced that feeling before, but I am familiar. I am familiar with that sensation, and I think I can probably match you there, perhaps, with that feeling. But it was quite nice. It was okay in the end. We had a fairly reasonable Christmas. I guess we haven't seen you since then. It was nice to have a break, actually, and New Year was good, and we didn't get sick, but everybody's falling around the wayside. You know, that's just the way it is. But it doesn't seem quite as. Yeah, and I feel that mixing actually is a good method of burning calories. So I'm sticking with that for the moment.
Okay, that's an interesting theory, I suppose. I mean, but also not so crazy. It's actually, I don't know what's going on. Everything's broken. Because when you're in the flow, I think your metabolic rate increases enormously. I noticed that, before I started the show here, I felt it was a bit chilly, so I turned the heating up a bit. But now I'm actually kind of on, as it were. I feel a bit warmer because my metabolism has raised up. So I think you could be onto something there. So
yeah, I guess it also depends very much on the BPM of the track you're mixing, obviously.
How fast you're tapping your foot. How fast you've got to move the faders, right? Maybe not. Anyway, lovely to have you, Yoad. It's always a pleasure. And also we've got Mr. Gaz Williams, who's over there in Bristol, is looking very tropical today. Are you feeling summery? It looks like the sun is shining.
Yes. Well, it's all artificial, trying to stimulate some creativity. Because actually, you may have wondered why I was really quiet then. I actually had the mic turned down and I was beavering away, switching out modules. I'm going to do a show tonight, and I was just trying to kind of configure everything sort of surreptitiously. Nick, I've made a discovery that's worth spreading. I have recently got the 505 Mark II,
yes.
Like yourself. Made a little stream about it last week. I'm going to do another follow-up one tonight. But look at this. This bag from, I think it's UDG. It's called the Digi, what's it called? The Digi Max or so. Oh, I'll remember the title of it. But I'm using the Mark I here as a model, but it takes the Mark II and it puts it into like a little... This is designed. It's
luggage
designed for
fetishist
DJ kind of stuff.
Did we ever tell you about that? A lot of people on Sonictalk are kind of luggage fetishists as well.
Well,
now you know.
That's why I needed to share that though, because the 505 is an awkward shape for sort of schlepping about, but yeah, it is a really good thing to schlep about. So that bag seems to be the ticket. It really fits really nicely into there.
What's it called? The Ultimate Digi Backpack.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, hold on, I've got it here. Let me just bring that web page up.
But it was like saying, like, the maximum depth was 42 millimeters, and I think that is the sort of dimension of the 505. But yes, I can report that it fits really nicely into it.
Nice.
Better than the Mark 1, strangely. The Mark 1 is a tiny bit longer. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
I've just pressed. I've just read. One of the things that I'm having trouble is because my muscle memory is to switch, so I'm trying to leave control, but it takes a little. It just takes a little bit of flipping space because I can. It can happen without me moving. Well, Gaz, how have you been getting on with the 505? Because I know you were doing your stream last week after this show. Have you discovered anything specific that's really kind of made it very?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the bounce, getting into bounce and how it just connects back to that, the old days of bouncing tracks, and that is a kind of art. You're making a little mix down, to create that bounce down, and you typically don't do that in a normal computer workflow, but it completely connects to when I first started recording on 4-tracks in the 1980s, making those creative bounce downs. I've been having a lot of fun with that, and I think it's such a super, perhaps it should have been there from the start, of course, but I mean, as a feature in the Mark II, that's brilliant because you can just keep on going, and every time you fill up a kind of your 5 tracks, you just go to the next memory, and you can copy any of the elements across.
Well, the other thing that you could do, of course, is you could use that undo, so you could bounce to a track. And have a particular state and then unbounce, so you could have something underneath it and then bounce on top to that track, so you end up with these kind of scenarios where you're using the new undo feature to do the unbounce and the bounce, and then that gives you almost sections that you can play with, and that starts to get a bit like, whoa, hold on. Yeah.
Wow, what a great idea. I haven't used that undo level thing yet, so that is a great use of it.
Yeah. Anyway, nifty. I've just realised, rather embarrassingly, that I forgot to enable the YouTube stream to go to the predefined show. So hopefully you'll all find out where it is, because I can't see it at the moment, and I've got no stats. So there are people watching, but I think it's not working. So I'm terribly sorry about that. Yeah, Loopy Pro is the other thing, as Mr. Grumpy says in the. I don't know how you pronounce that, Mr. Gruncy. You could use Loopy Pro, which again is something we spoke about a little bit. Anyway, let's get on to a bit of topicality, shall we? I'm going to go with the Spitfire. Let me just get this lined up. So we're on to Spitfire Frozen Strings, which is an interesting one. I'll just do this just because it's simpler. So here we go. Oh, lovely. So yeah, this is the new Spitfire library that is the Spitfire Frozen Strings, which is part of their, now if I get this right, it's the originals. And the thing that makes this kind of interesting is the fact that it's actually, it's 29 quid. 2.8 gigs, wow. NKS compatible. So, compared to what we're usually talking about in terms of their higher end libraries, this is a sort of slightly new track, and I think it works really well because it's such a low price point, but it's still got that kind of specific. This was 8-string players recorded at Air. And doing lots of very quiet things, which must be a nightmare just in terms of, oh no, a bus went past, oh no, there was a tube, oh no, somebody dropped their pencil, because we're recording really tippy-toe stuff. It must be a nightmare. Interesting though. Yoad, I don't know if you've got, I know you're a library consumer. We haven't got any of our library, our media composers here who would do the orchestral stuff. But I know most of us are kind of fans of what Spitfire does. It seems like quite an interesting tack, though, making this much more affordable, bite size, rather than having all of those articulations.
Absolutely. I mean, I have quite a few of the Spitfire offerings, and I love them. It's creative, it's tasteful, it's always... it always kind of blends in with what you're working on for some reason, and this one seems I didn't have a chance to buy it, but I'm definitely going to right after this, or maybe during even the show. It seems like it just does the what you want it to do in terms of any. yeah, for some reason they managed to get the players to vibe, even though, I don't know
They're
if
not playing to anything.
exactly. I don't know if many people have actually recorded musicians for sample libraries, which I have. And it's really hard because you sit in front of a piano or your instrument or guitars or whatever it is, not to mention strings, which is very, very, even adds another layer of difficulty because you have to really control not only the attack like a piano, or even a guitar, and just hold it there, but you have to stay with it, throughout the whole duration of the note, and then so to manage to get a vibe into that is really difficult, and they know how to do it, and I really like them for that. And although they're quite big, very sort of substantial,
Amounts of memory. Right. Okay.
yeah, no, but as a brand, they
Oh, I
became
see.
very, very big, like a big player in this market. They still retain their kind of boutique vibe, and you feel that you get something unique, when you buy this stuff. And I really like them.
Yeah, excellent. I think as Rocky pointed out in the chat room, this is actually the originals have been going for over a year, so it's not a new thing. But they started off with their labs free stuff, which was kind of pretty cool, and then moving over to the actual. To the kind of slightly larger and more specialised things. Gaz, I mean, I know you're probably not a big user of orchestral libraries, but it's really interesting. These sounds almost make you want to buy them, even though you might not know what you'd ever use them for.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful demo of it as well, and it's really, so tantalising for the price. I mean, the price, this £29, which I guess, what does that translate to in dollars? Is that like $35? Or I'm not sure how
it's
much,
not much,
is
is
it?
it?
No, but I mean, that price point seems. When did we first encounter that? Maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and with Waves, sort of especially, I think. But that price point seems to be. I mean, maybe it's just a sweet spot, and I think it's definitely affordable, isn't it? It's not. It doesn't feel like a huge investment, but yet it also is a. It's a sort. It definitely is a considered spend, but I think it's a really interesting price point. I think they're probably going to get loads of people buying it who wouldn't ordinarily spend very much on software, and I think that's maybe the thing that's kind of interesting. They've been brought in with labs, and now
Well, yeah, exactly. If you get 10 times the sales of a $300 library for $30, then. Although you've got the support and stuff, and the other, and I'm sure Yoad would know about the dynamics of that, but it's ultimately more or less the same thing, right?
But I mean, just to echo what Yoad's saying, that the vibe and that they managed to get that into a lot of their things. I mean, the labs is a great example of that. Those are vibey. You just straight out the box, they give you a vibe, and yeah, they're fabulous at that. They really are, and brilliant. What an amazing company. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So
once again, off they go down that route. Okay, but yeah, interesting. Anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning, even though, like I said, I hadn't actually caught the original's sort of concept before. Now I know what it is. It just seemed to be completely obvious because this is more of a strings and more of a like recorded at air, whatever. It feels like more value somehow because it's got a bit more provenance than, I think they did felt piano and a couple of other things as well. But interesting. I think what I'm going to do is just while we've got a break, I'm going to drop a little mention in from our friends over at Isotope and of course Prince Charles Alexander.
Isotope Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse Isotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the Isotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. will also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
And once again, we thank them for their sponsor of the show. And don't forget, if you head over to iZotope.com/Sonictalk, special landing page, and use the code Sonic10. This is a slightly undocumented, but worth having, I think. Then you'll save 10% on any software purchase apart from bundles. Anyway, we thank them for their continued support of the show. And happy 2022 to all of them over there. Right, okay, what's next? Let's see what I'm going to put into the next. Oh yeah, I was going to do this because we did predictions. We were doing this kind of like trends and predictions from last year, and I know Gaz mentioned some stuff that because he was on last week's show, but Yoad didn't have the chance, and I just wondered. I mean, I realise, Yoad, this could be slightly uncomfortable because you're actually working on products, but outside of the things you're working on and you can't talk about, what do you think is going to be happening, sort of technology-wise, in the next year? Do you see any kind of underlying trends that you could share with us?
Well, are we talking hardware or software? Because that's,
I suppose either. I mean, well, I one of the things that I'm becoming more realist, one of the things that's happened recently is I've noticed, like Harrison, for instance, have created a virtual engine that's just a mix engine just designed for running in the cloud. So they make consoles, but obviously people who are making lots of hardware are discovering that it's, with component shortages, maybe software is the way to go. And I imagine the same is going for SoundGrid and the Wave stuff, because that is essentially a server as well. I wonder if you're seeing similar trends in that from that point of view.
Yeah, so I have to be a little bit careful about what I can say and what I can't say. But as a trend, and as we see from other companies, there's a lot of movement to the cloud. Eventually, we're going to see our laptops are going to be just terminals, or our phones or whatever it is, to processes that will take place in the cloud, and this would basically, in terms of processing power, it will give us a lot more capabilities for AI. And for other kind of very demanding processes, to run a bunch of plugins at the moment, it doesn't really make sense to do it on the cloud. But as plugins become more and more clever and demand more and more CPU, and we're seeing some processes that you can run like one or two on your laptop before it just stops, and the scalability and the seamless scalability is something that you can't beat, because when you buy whatever M2 Max, whatever you're gonna have, you get it, and you have to live with it for 3 or 5 or 6 or 7 years. And with the cloud, it's scalable, and it's scalable in real time, and it's based on real time demand.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to, and for companies like us, like Waves, it makes a lot of sense to, and it gives us a lot of motivation, and it's something that we always want to do. We always want to have more processing and more kind of clever ideas and methods of processing the sound and analyzing the sound and manipulating the sound. But we always have to take into consideration, the usability and how many plugins, how many instances a user will want to use. And this opens this whole thing. The market will have to adjust, because these things don't come for free. So you have to pay for the bandwidth, and you have to pay for the storage, and you have to pay for the memory, even on the cloud. So there are a lot of things to consider. But I think that we will see in the next few years, we're starting to see the transition to the cloud, and we will see more of that. I can't predict, and I don't think that no one can say, in 7 years it will all be on the cloud, but we're definitely heading there. It's almost like, the trend with electric cars. Eventually, it will all be electric cars, but
it's not yet.
No one
it's interesting.
Exactly.
I suppose the thing is, you could imagine, because, like, for instance, we could be running this in the cloud. I know I bang on about it, but the idea is, I might need suddenly a really powerful computer to do, maybe some Waves plugins, but I don't want to buy it. I'll just rent some cloud time, and say, for instance, like, if we can run this whole shoot and match, this show in the cloud, and it costs about $2 an hour, which it's quite, plus bandwidth, which is negligible for, it's not going to be more than a couple of gigs. It's only going to be a matter of cents. So, once a week, we could scale this up and we could have this. And so let's say we needed a show with 20 people phoning in. We could do that because we just kind of go, okay, let's just fire up a couple of more of these and we'll use it while we need it. We don't need that in the office. We don't need that sort of capability here.
Exactly.
We just need to be able to. But the same thing could be happening with editing. So the same paradigm works. So yeah, I could see that. And I think the challenge is, obviously, is the latency and the real-time interactivity. That's never really going to work for playing live into one of those plugins. It's going to be a more of a kind of everything arriving at the same time paradigm. So like the mix, you're pressing play and you're monitoring and it all arrives at the same time, but the process isn't happening. And the latencies that we can get are pretty low. I mean, they don't have to be, certainly for audio. And if you've got a remote desktop, it's not much, is it?
At the same time, there is the reverse trend almost with your phone, where a lot of processes are now done locally on your phone because the CPU on the phone is so powerful. So it's a matter of deciding what is done where and basically utilizing the best kind of service and processing abilities. For recording remotely and jamming remotely is always going to be an issue, but I think that people are adjusting to that as well, especially after the past 2 years and what it has done to the whole industry. So interesting times, definitely.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah,
I tell you what. This stuff would really excite me if you could do this. Imagine if you could do this. Take your DAW and just go snapshot that into the cloud, all the plugins, all the configurations, everything. all your plugins, everything. Just snapshot into the cloud and then new computer, DAW, snapshot it back.
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, that sort of works with something like Time Machine, does it not? Or is the authorization different? I suppose it depends on the authorization, but I mean, it should. I mean, just everything.
Sort of. I'm just, I'm just being that sort of like lazy musician. It's just like everything. It's just like, there it is. Like, because I'm a Cubase user, so my Cubase in the cloud or whatever is all my plugins, everything. So every time I install it, I just go, boop, because I log in as a me, like we're seeing this in other applications. So in fact,
it's like almost a self-contained application. That session becomes an application that has all the plugins it needs in it. Doesn't need any other external. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
You could log into any computer and get into your Cubase session.
So basically, it already happens with your phone, because when you buy a new Samsung or a new Apple phone or a new iPhone, then your whole kind of thing is in the cloud, and it just download it to a new. The thing is that our market is not big enough. There's not enough money to invest with this infrastructure and all the security issues and things like that. So unfortunately, we're going to have to still spend long nights reinstalling stuff and sample libraries and authorizations and things like that.
Yeah.
Soon, one day. Anyway, sorry, that was a little bit of a sort of diversion. I mean, we do actually have another topic which I was going to bring up, which is, and this is, I think this is always fun. So I'm just going to hit go on this. What is it about wind controllers that sort of make you laugh a little bit? It's fun, and I can't really explain it. It's a bit like a keytar. You know, it's slightly more absurd than a keytar, even though I would argue very, very expressive. And I know that Will Gregory and the Moog Ensemble use Akai controllers and other controllers to control their analog synths, and it's amazing the sound they get from this. This is the Roland Aerophone AE20, which is around about $800. It's got 250 internal sounds, Bluetooth, MIDI, and it's got the Zen Core engine, sax compatible key layout. So I guess that depends on whether you're familiar with that. I mean, this is just the performance. I don't know who all the performers are, but it's very expressive. It does. There's something a little bit about the Star Wars band, isn't there, about it? I don't know why, and it's really unfair because people who play the saxophone aren't considered that way, you know, unless maybe they wear a trilby and have a pencil tie. You know, there are certain stereotypes. But this looks kind of interesting. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Are either of you wind players or have been wind players?
Unfortunately not. I mean, I envy you know, wind players, because with a guitar, once you plucked or picked the string, you can only bend the pitch and or mute it, whatever, but then it stops. So you don't have control over the sustain of the song, of the sound, you know. And with keyboards, even with keyboards, you have stuff like aftertouch. I don't know if you can see here the continue mini.
Oh yeah, I know you're a big fan of that.
Which has that, but I'm not. You know, my keyboard capabilities are far inferior to I'm a guitarist, so, and I'm always looking for a new controller, something that, but even with the best controller, you won't be able to. That's why I got a fretless bass, because on a fretless bass you kind of get a little bit more of that, and sometimes I play it high, like, you know, high notes and with some distortion and stuff, and you get a little bit of that you know, expression or expressivity, and yeah, with those wind instruments, it seems like I always envied it since the days of the Akai. The Akai had a controller like that ages ago, but you have to know how to play a sax. That's your starting point, and that's really hard.
I agree, but I think, you know, in this sort of world where we're not always playing the most complex of lines in, you could actually have a lot of expression applied to a single note. You get the note right, and you can use that. And if you've got sort of MIDI to CV that take controllers in, I know that like I say, the Will Gregory's Moog Ensemble, they use EWIs and they use different flavors of them, and the stuff that they use is it's incredible. It makes them sound like real instruments. Oh, Gaz, I mean, you work with wind players and brass players. I mean, do any of those use this stuff, or kind of got a hankling for it?
In my experience, the sort of people who are into those kind of things are typically wary of, you know, digital technology. So I think I think that market probably always has that as an obstacle, I think, and especially with them looking kind of unusual. I think people are self-conscious playing them. People who gravitate to the saxophone quite often are people who see that and make, you know, it's how it looks and how it looks to play. I know that sounds a bit superficial, but I know that it's true. And these things just look kind of a bit ungainly or toy-like. However, they are really deep, expressive instruments, and I really want one. I was remembering, I bought one of those Casio digi horns.
Saxes.
Do you remember those? Shaped like a saxophone, silver one.
Looks like something you get out of a Christmas cracker, didn't it?
Yeah, I just don't think it had the necessary throughput for all my slobber. I think it's you know,
you were too wet.
It was too wet. No, but I think it probably had just this nice little tiny hole. But I reckon a lot of gunk comes out your mouth, doesn't it, when you're playing these things? It's sort of I've sat near horn players a lot, and been I've been
here we
got
go.
at times.
There we are. That's the digi horn. That's it.
Yeah, the digihorn. That's the one. The silver one,
what's bizarre, that only looks marginally less ridiculous than the 800 quid.
Yeah, but you see, and I think this is this thing. But imagine controlling some of those brilliant Spitfire libraries with one of those things, and incredible. I
agree.
I
think
after them. Yeah.
No, I think it's an interesting area, and I think maybe it's just our own prejudice that are causing us an issue. But this has got loads of onboard sounds. You can do it via Bluetooth MIDI. It's got a little speaker in it, so I guess playing a brass or a wind instrument at full tilt can be a little bit loud. I remember in the 80s I knew people who played saxophone, and they used to practice in cupboards. So they would open the door to a cupboard and play into it, so it would wouldn't bother the neighbours quite so much.
Is it the same fingering as a saxophone? Is it the basic sax, based on it off the, or is it recorder fingering?
I know it's sax key fingering is what it says.
It's sax key fingering. Great. So you could you can transfer your chops across.
Yeah, I don't know how transferable it is. I suppose if you play anything that's valved or with that's got that kind of action, you probably can adapt relatively quickly because it's about the dexterity.
And it's like muscle memory, scales and stuff are, there's a certain amount of that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. I mean, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Roland always get flack for their sort of digital accordions and whatnot, but I mean, there's no reason, again, why this isn't really powerful. I wonder whether it needs to have all of that stuff. The other thing, it's got the Zencore engine, so you can actually drop your patches from your, you move your patches between your guitar and your digital horn.
Oh no, that's the one. I mean, that's the Zencore. Oh, that makes me really want it. That opens it up hugely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it's only monophonic though. I mean, interesting how you would get an Aerophone to play polyphonically. That would be quite a challenging. Whether you could have a sustain pedal, that would. That's interesting. Don't know how that would work.
or like there's a module I've got here now. They're called the Instruo Harmonig, and that can take a single, like a control voltage, and then create chords out of it, and then you can mess with the kind of chords. So a similar approach would be cool, where that single note is going into chords and then through a scalar.
Okay. Interesting. Well, anyway, I thought it was worth mentioning, throwing in there. Let's see what else we've got. Actually, maybe we'll just have. Oh, yeah. Did you see? I did a patch flip for the Yuhi Metaphorium, which is the Hive 2.1 stuff, and it just so happens that was sponsored content, and just so happens we have a message from them as well. Well worth checking out. This is Yuhi Metaphorium, a 220 plus strong sound bank for Hive 2.1 that has been custom crafted over a period of 2 years by Howard Scar, Victor Weimer and also Urs Heckman himself. The bank was originally commissioned as a custom set for composer Johnny Kilmeck for projects he had coming up, including a secret film. That film turned out to be The Matrix Resurrections. As Urs Heckman was one of the patch designers, features were added to Hive 2.1 to allow the creation of the new bank. Pretty cool. The soundbank is available via yuhi.com, priced at €39. Use the URL bit.ly/talkmeta. Yeah, worth checking out that video. I think we've got an interview coming up with. I'm going to interviewing the three sound designers. So Howard Scar, Urs Heckman, and Victor Weimer. I'd be interesting to see. I'm just curious to talk to them as sound designers. I've got a load of questions lined up ready that I'd be interested to know. Like for instance, one of them, I want to know how whether they get as creatively inspired by their own patches, whether they've actually got any sort of bandwidth left to come up with music for those patches, because they're making them themselves, But anyway, I've got a whole things that should be a couple of weeks.
Do you remember I did a round table with patch designers at Synth Reactor, and I had a fantastic group of people. I had Rob Pappen, and I had Skippy John from Plugin Guru, and Jackson from Modal, and who else is in my patch designs? Who have I missed? But we did a round table where asked the same question to the different patch designers. And that was fascinating. So just that reminded me of that. So yeah.
Well, I look forward to it. I know it's going to be a challenge. We might do that in the cloud because somebody's in some part of the world, and people are all over the place, so it'd be interesting. But okay, let's have a look at what else we have on the list. It's this time of year is often quite quiet, but let's see. We've got something from. Let me just bring this up. Yeah, here we go. What was this? Number 5. Let's just go. Bang. Very short. This. New AiX sound source coming 20th of January. New Casio. Looks like it's a new synth engine, which I think could be an exciting thing because, I mean, Casio have been quite dormant for a while, yet at the same time people are raving about the old CZs and the phase distortion and all this kind of synthesis, and it's been a little while since they've released new instruments. I mean, they did do the I can't remember I reviewed a couple of them. They were sort of on their way to being really, I mean, they were incredibly powerful, but a little complex to use. So this will be January the 20th. There was a vocoder in there. It sounded quite old school vocoder, but it's always nice to see a big name maybe coming back. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm hoping it's going to be, what would you like it to be? How about that?
Another, like you said, another kind of synthesis method or an augmentation or of an existing one like FM or wavetable. Wavetable could be really nice. I suspect that what you hear on this video, which sounds like a vocoder, could actually be a really high resolution wavetable.
Okay.
So that could be just a speculation, but that could be really interesting. I love Casio, and I used to use. I still have it, the FZ10M, the sampler. I used to have it even before the IRCAM, before the S1000, and it was great. And it had additive synthesis, and you could re-synthesize stuff like kind of poor people's synclavier, and they were always very innovative. And it should be interesting to wait and see.
Well, they've got a couple
come up with.
They've got a couple of the Korg US team in there, Mike Martin and Rich Formidoni are there, and I know they're big synthesis fans, and they're probably pushing that because Casio have also made some really cool. I mean, probably not something that everybody here would be interested in, but some very affordable and lightweight and portable pianos. I had one here. It was the 88 key version. It had the same synth engine that the XWP1, I think it was called. I can't remember the exact number. I don't know. Have you got any Casio stuff apart from a VL Tone?
Go on, Casio. Well, I remember it was back in 2012 when Casio teased the new synth, and we all got excited about it back then. And that was for the XWP1, and was it the XWG1 as well? Wasn't it? Which was, always one of those slightly confusing things when you've got two almost the same products.
Yeah, it was quite complicated. I think I did the P1, and it was very powerful, but it was such. I think the problem is they followed their own sort of UI and layout format, which was just so unfamiliar to anything else. It was really difficult conceptually to get your head around. Even though it was very powerful, it was just very hard to operate because it was so different to what other stuff.
I think that's what we kind of want from Casio, though, is some sort of Japanese, special that thing where I mean, I was reflecting on how amazing sort of in the early 80s, sort of the allure Japan had on the country. And I was listening to Yellow Magic Orchestra's 1979 amazing album. And I think there's something about Casio being very evocative of that sort of retro-futuristic kind of thing. And for me, I would just hope that this new thing from Casio would be a completely incomprehensible Japanese you
want something completely unfamiliar and mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. I don't see there's anything wrong with that. I suppose it's really interesting because as a reviewer, one sort of doesn't want to veer too far from the path of what is easily you can figure out. You know, if you get something that's just so massively obscure and willfully obscure, I get cross when when I'm presented with something that's so hard to use, and I'm really it's weird because it's not. I'm not a typical user because if I'd spent that money, I might be more open to learning something new. But when you're kind of constantly, so I suppose I need to think about it a little bit because it's philosophically, I shouldn't complain about bad UI. I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Because if it's bad, I've also got to pass that on. I don't know which I should do. It's difficult. It's tricky one to fathom.
Because I noticed that you linked to that Tecmo video about the Sony chord machine where it looks like it's a boombox, but it's
that was that's right, that was a story, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tecmo has done a video about it, and he asked the question about Sony have ever made synthesizers, and I thought, ooh. Have Sony ever made a synthesizer? Because this chord machine is a sort of instrument from the early 80s.
I'm just trying to find it. This thing, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really peculiar thing. But I suppose that's what I would like to see from Casio is something that is Japanese and exotic and sort of than something that's, like a worse version.
Too mass market.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? We had that discussion about how because the Japanese culture has always been incredibly sort of aesthetically pleasing and very beautiful. Yet when it comes to their industrial design, you could sort of substitute Scandinavian design and industrial design for the sort of the beautiful culture. The Scandinavian stuff looks like what Japanese stuff you would imagine would be if you looked at all of the things that they made from the craftsmanship point of view, all the architecture, all the art and those things. It's a fascinating. We could probably go on for that for hours. But yeah, I don't know. I think you could be right though, Yoad, about it being a wavetable thing. There are speculations going on online. I can't really comment because they got me to sign an NDA because I was supposed to be finding out about this earlier and I haven't heard anything else. But if there's anything that comes up, I can't really comment on it, which is why I don't normally sign NDAs. But I'm going to be meeting with Mike tomorrow where I'll have the full skinny. But I don't suppose I'll be able to talk about it until the 20th, which is when it comes out. But it's always a bit of fun. They haven't gone too far on the teasers. Okay, what else have we got? It's slow. I have to say it's slow. Did you see the this was something that DivKid posted before Christmas, which was the what was it, Vangelis recent studio shot where there's a picture of Vangelis in his studio, but it's actually full of really modern equipment. So there's a Polybrute, there's a Hydrosynth, there's a Moog grandmother possibly. Looks like there's an Argonate. There's a whole load of modular stuff, and he made a modular grid, made a breakout of it. So I think it's sort of quite interesting that in a way, we always, because we've been talking about Vangelis's kind of progression into this system where he had his everything was very easy to use. It was all in the box and it was all done via MIDI controllers, and it led to this rather generic kind of orchestral noodling, which is still great, but it's not like classic Vangelis. And I just wondered whether anybody had any sense of anything to say, because I've said it all, I suppose, really, haven't I?
I would
Well,
like to say I know it's not going to be a very popular view, but I love the album John and Vangelis, Friends of
oh,
Mr. Cairo.
oh,
Such a
love it.
good album.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And the sounds. I mean, the songs are great, and John, the vocals, obviously, but just to think about, from a production point of view, to achieve all that with the gear he was using back then, all modular, I suppose, all monophonic, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Such a great album. That was way before the CS80 and all that. Or maybe not, I don't know, but
What
it
year was
doesn't
that?
sound like it's CS80. I think it was 78, but
Right, okay.
it doesn't sound like maybe they just finished it, because if it was released in 78, so they must have been working on it for a couple of years prior to that. But just the sounds of the drum programming, I don't know what they've used. I'm sure that there are people out there who know exactly what gear has been used and stuff. But
Was that
it's just
State of
unbelievable.
Independence? Was that off that album?
Yeah, the song that song is from that album.
That sounded like Lynn
Yeah.
to me, something, but I guess it might have been a bit early for Lynn, wouldn't it?
I think it's no. There are no samples on that. That's
Oh
for sure. It's
gosh.
all kind of white noise,
Like an 81,
shaping
yes.
and stuff like that.
Oh, I'll have to go
Amazing
back and listen
album.
to it. I'll have to go back and listen to that. Interesting. Okay. Sorry, Gaz, you wanted
yeah.
to jump in.
Just there's a few things of interest really in his modular rack, which is really interesting to see. Also, the fact that he's got those modern synths, to me, shows that he's kept a real, very much into the synth world. Not because I think that video that we saw of him maybe about 10 years ago, working with those really strange preset devices.
Yeah, his custom controller. Yeah, incredible. Well, I mean, to be fair, if you're Vangelis, you're probably, if anyone's going to get sent a load of free stuff, I'd imagine it's probably he might. I mean, it could be, but it could be that he's seeking it out and finding it, or it could be that people are just constantly sending him stuff.
But I noticed in his rack he has got the Div Kid Ocht module in Vangelis's rack. So I reckon Ben was probably really, really chuffed. Incidentally, that module, I know I'm going down this modular path, but this module is really interesting. It's 8 unsynced LFOs that start fast and get sort of progressively slower, and you've just got a overall master control that affects like the first output and then everything subsequently down of that. So really, really cool. So set it really slow, really, really slow, and have just real slow, lots and lots and lots of just drifting elements. That was Ben's design, and it's a brilliant module. So just plugging in that, because it's blown my mind. That has. I've been mapping the overall speed of it to a mod wheel. So you've got like 8 modulations that your mod wheel is controlling simultaneously. So much fun.
Will it go into audio rates? Can you use them like almost like sines? Can they have harmonic relationships as well?
Yeah, I think the fastest ones, I think, just about get into audio rate.
Right, so not
but
quite.
Really, no. Yeah, it's more designed for this. I think slower tempos. I think roughly in the middle, the top one is sort of like that would be like maximum vibrato that you'd have on a typical keyboard, so as a point of reference. And then you can go either side of that. But yeah, analog oscillators as well. So the LFOs. So it's it does kind of drift around a little bit, and I think that's the whole point of it. So
I wonder do you think because he's got all that modular stuff is why we haven't seen so much new material from him for a while?
Well, I noticed he's got a couple of 4MS spherical wavetable navigators, which that's become my main #1 module now. But it's taken me a long time to learn how to use it. So yeah, I reckon I think that's my takeaway from the modular stuff, is it takes enormous amounts of time to get into the modules. They're all like sophisticated instruments that take
and to figure
out
how they work, how to make stuff with them, because I mean, there are things that are made that people go, look what I've made, and you go, yeah, that's fantastic, I can't think of any way I would use it. It's all about figuring out how to utilize them creatively as well, because I mean, as we know, so a lot of this stuff is fantastic, but it might not suit your particular creative workflow or whatever, and then it's so in many ways it's useless from that point of view. So
yeah,
that's half the battle, I would guess.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's interesting to see that sort of, actually those modules in Vangelis's rack, almost all modules from the last, couple of years. They're all, it's very, very modern. So yeah, I think that's.
I wonder if he's got like a kind of a post box that just gets emptied has to be emptied every week because it's just full of people sending him stuff. I don't know. This does tie into I wasn't going to do this one, but I think it might be moderately interesting. So this is about the new IRCAM. No, it's not. That's not. Oh, not that one. It's that one. Here we go. Let's do that. This is an interesting one. It's IRCAM, which is Pompidou Centre, which, as we know, had a heck of a lot of influence in early musical DSP coding, sampling, a lot of early technology. And they've just come up with this thing called Neurorack. It's all a bit conceptual, but the idea is using a AI-based audio synth, which runs on this rather interesting GPU-based core. What's it called? I'm trying to find the actual. What is it? NVIDIA Jetson Nano. I don't know quite what it does. It seems like a load of PR, but it's an interesting one. But it does run on the NVIDIA Jetson Nano, which looks like a really interesting 128-core GPU that you can use for sort of more small AI projects and neural networks, which I'm guessing is kind of what they're tapping into. But there's two things going on here. IRCAM, haven't heard them from them for a long time, and also the fact that just using GPUs to do this number crunching. I guess, Yoad, you probably know about this stuff. I mean, does IRCAM, are you familiar with the work of IRCAM? I mean, they've been going a long time. Some of their stuff was just, massively formative in early music technology, because they start. Did they not start the kind of concept of open sourcing? Some of the early sampling and stuff.
I think they were involved with that. Yeah, they were heavily involved with that. I didn't really understand.
No, I didn't either.
what it does. So. I mean, whether it's a synthesis kind of method, which then, what is it? Is it additive synthesis, wavetable, FM? Is it sample based? What it looked to me like it does is that it generates, and that's why they chose to use it in a modular environment, that it generates CV outputs and triggers in an interesting and creative way. Yeah. Like self-generating and evolving and all those things, and that's why it would naturally find its place in a modular rack. That's what I could understand. Otherwise, like even the sounds on this promo thing are not very distinct. So I'm not hearing any kind of new synthesis method, and I think it's probably a sort of sophisticated CV generator or manipulator or something like that. I think
you're possibly right there. I mean, it did feel a little bit like marketing speak with very little substance. But I suppose I was just sort of quite pleased to see IRCAM kind of featuring, because I suppose to a degree, as everybody is, as coding and this kind of access to this sort of DSP coding as becoming more democratized in the same way that music creation is, these kind of centers of excellence that used to specialize in this are less relevant in terms of, because there are other people that could be doing similar work elsewhere that are not kind of part of the umbrella organization. So it must be quite hard to actually find projects to work on and to do this kind of work on. So I'm pleased. I should give them a name check. It's Ninon Davies, Philip Eastling, and I'm just trying to find the name of the other chap, and Martin Vell. I guess Martin Green, if he was if we were to. I don't know. I think we're going to see more of this stuff, and I think this was really just sort of bringing on to this wider context of what, as I said at the beginning of this sort of lockdown, is we're going to start seeing the fruits of all of these people having a little bit of downtime, creative people, and coming up with these concepts, and maybe having a little bit of time to pitch stuff. Has that happened in waves, Yoad, that people have just, because they have maybe had a bit of downtime? I mean, I know with a company like that, they were able to work.
No downtime whatsoever. We were so busy. We still are, and everyone is working like crazy, and the fact that people are mostly working from home has just increased the capacity and the yield and the motivation and everything. So it's been a crazy couple of years nearly.
Yeah. But I mean, have any new new concepts and new kind of wacky ideas come out of that intense period? Without going into specifics,
next month we're gonna have some quite a few releases of plugins, but there are other concepts and other sort of ideas and methods that are being developed, which I can't really disclose, but very interesting and ambitious stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good to know. You heard it here, folks, in a non-specific way, but I'm sure we'll all be revealed very shortly. I'm sure you haven't done broken any NDAs or any of that stuff. Well, I think we're probably at a point. There was one thing that. Sorry. Did you have something you want to mention?
Oh, well, it's just about that topic, really.
Oh, sorry. Did I not? I do apologise. Over to you, guys.
It's all right.
You have the floor.
No, it's cool. Well, I mean, probably like many people, I'd never heard of IRCAM until the GRM tools, because, GRM tools came out,
did it?
20 odd years ago, was it maybe?
98, I think.
98, right.
99
so those
maybe.
Plugins, they were mind-blowing to me. That was my first real experience of kind of granular processing, I guess, but they were so interesting, and they were right at the beginning of plugins as well, and they were so forward looking. It's quite astonishing, really, how old they are. But IRCAM itself is situated. It's next to the Pompidou Centre.
Yeah, it used to be in the basement. I went there as a kid, and I downstairs. It was underneath, or round the back, or something.
Right.
FM. John Channing did a lot of work for IRCAM, early FM. Miller Paquette wrote Max at IRCAM in the 80s. There's some real, and they did a load of really important work on real-time FFT stuff, which enabled us to have a lot of. It opened the door to a lot of the current technology, I think.
Wow, amazing. I know that Frank Zappa and the Pierre Boulez collaboration, I think, was it Perfect Strangers? That was done at IRCAM. Got loads of things. So yeah, just great to see them.
Can you imagine? It depends on which country you're from. Some countries may support this kind of thing, but certainly in the UK, the concept of, or in the US, the concept of having a public government-funded institute for just sort of pissing about with concepts to do with music and science. Yes, please. That's yields.
Yes,
imagine the art and the income that may have come out of all of this. What a foresight. What a brilliant societal kind of investment, I would say. Can we have some more of this, please?
Yes, hooray! Yeah, amazing. Yeah, great point.
Right, I suppose we're at the point where we would probably say goodbye. It feels like we got through the hour. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to all of our YouTubers and your IRCers and the Discorders. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Wagyu for making that possible, so we can watch all the chat come in one window. There's more stuff coming soon, hopefully. And I think, thanks to our sponsors. Thank you to Isotope with Yuhi. Do check out their stuff. I'm just trying to think what else is coming up. Yeah, I'm going to be looking at the boutique JD08. Just started recording some stuff with that. Surprisingly fun. You know, you look at it and you think, oh, that's ridiculous. That's just going to be totally useless. But actually, I was programming patches on it. Yes, the faders are short. It's not a bad sounding little synth, actually, and it's quite easy to make sounds on.
That thing about the layers.
If it sounds like... No.
Oh. No, after you, Yoad.
Go, Yoad.
No, I just wanted to say, if it sounds like the original, which there's no reason why it shouldn't, because it's all digital, and I have the original here, which is such a good synth, then that is a really good little toy. Yeah,
I must admit, I was expecting to feel a little bit like, oh god, back to this, but actually, because it was one of the kind of like kickbacks. It was one of the first kind of really parameter knob encrusted synthesizers after the D50 and after the DX, and after we had all this just kind of parameter access. This was a kind of like, no, let's have a look at let's do a proper control synthesizer. And admittedly, this is sort of like a joke version of that a little bit, but actually it's surprisingly usable. And go Gas, yeah.
Sorry. Well, you were saying surprisingly usable.
Yeah.
But the point I was just going to make, though, is that although you've got the restricted travel of the faders, you still have got that fast 4-layer editing paradigm.
Neat. That's neat.
Isn't it neat? So you can hold down, you can edit all 4 layers simultaneously if they're lit, or then you can go to layer 2, change the LFO on layer 2 independently of the other layers. And that's what I wanted to ask you about. How are you finding that implementation?
Well, the only thing I would say is, if I go to the shot of it of the actual unit, it would be so much better if you actually had 2 sets of 4s, because then it would be so much quicker. You could switch layers on and off quickly and then edit layers quickly. The thing that I thought you were talking about is the palette knobs, the palette buttons, because they're longer. What's really cool about those is you touch any control on the surface, and then those palettes control that parameter for each of the layers. And so whatever the last one you touched was, that's what they control, which is a bit of a genius kind of idea, not one that I'd actually come across before. It was sort of first time I'd seen that. So yeah, it's a little, if it had 2 sets of 4 selection buttons, it would be a lot more immediate, I would say.
And the polyphony of that is huge, isn't it?
128 tone polyphony. So if you're just using 1 tone, 128 voices, 2 tones, 64, 3 blah blah blah, so you get 64 voices out of it. 32 voices out of it if you're using all 4, but then you've got 2 layers, so you could have 2 16 voice full 16 voice polyphony layers, which is, again, it's kind of cool. And it's got an audio interface in it and a speaker, so it's got that kind of boutique utility. But as a thing, because I remember I reviewed the Jupiter, and I just thought this is ridiculous, because the largesse of the Jupiter compared to that, it just felt a mismatch. But this actually, because I've not experienced the JD800, I know it's a big thing, but it's still actually quite usable. Massive.
Yeah,
it's flipping massive.
It's deep and it's wide, and I'm just looking at it now. It's probably, I don't know, 45 centimeters deep or something. It's like, 1.5 feet or something deep. It's really wide and big. Yeah.
It's the original was about $3,000, $2,800 it cost to buy that. So it's it was an early expense.
How much is the boutique one?
£400.
Pounds.
338 something, I think.
Is it just 2 layers, multi-timbral, or can you do more?
Well, I've been finding I get the 2 layers, and then sometimes I go to another MIDI channel and there's just this sort of errant sawtooth, and I don't know where that's coming from. So as far as I know, it's just 2 layers. It's got 2 sequences. I think is it an arpeggiator per layer? I can't remember. Excuse me.
It seems like it's $350 though, Nick. Aren't available to buy where everyone seems to have it. $349.
A bit cheaper, yeah. That seems
that seems good, doesn't it?
It actually does, and I never thought I'd find. When I got it, I was not expecting to find myself saying that, but actually, it's quite good fun to use. Anyway, I was wrapping up. That suddenly went off. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Yoad, for joining us for Neurorack. Are you back on the mix thing, or are you waving? What's your next project?
I've not stopped for too many days, even a few days over Christmas, but I was back into it even before the new year, and mixing a lot. Working on a very interesting project, prog rock band. Mixing, having a lot of fun with that, and other stuff, a lot of pop stuff as well. Waves, so many different things. Like I said, there's going to be a few releases very soon. So just final stages of that, which is always hectic, and working on a new library for Nexus. So very busy.
Plenty of stuff to do. And of course, Gaz, lovely to have you as well. I think we're I'm just trying to think that we don't get to meet in person anymore. You came and did a gig on New Year's in Bath, but I didn't go out because I was feeling the risk factor. But
I'm conflicted at the moment, really conflicted. I was on a tour at the end of last year with Martin Carr, playing with the Charlatans around the UK. Great tour, except the last third of the tour.
Got sick, yeah.
No, I was sick before, so I missed the beginning, and then I joined the middle, and then the end of the tour was postponed, and now it's been rescheduled for the week of Super Booth.
Ooh.
I'm gutted.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see what what happens with that. But have you got a show tonight? You streaming tonight? You said you were setting up for that. Yeah.
So I'm going to be following up on what I did last week with the 505. I've spent time with it now. When I went on the show last week, it was my first time with it, and I've been exploring timing with, so in front of me tonight, this is what I'm going to have. I got the 505, and I've got a small selection of modules, including the Pamela's Workout and some drum sounds, and we're going to do some sort of bounce down recording. And also, there is one thing that is really fun to do, and I think that's what I'll probably start with, is that you can record the drums. You can include the drums in a recording, so you can loop the drums. You couldn't do that with the first one, but
you can also play them over MIDI and record them.
And you can play them over MIDI. But if you record them and then apply effects and then bounce it down, apply more effects and bounce it down, apply more effects and bounce it down, and so forth, without using any external sounds, you can get into some mad old places, so that's quite fun.
Nice. Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing or hearing the results of that madness. But that's it for this week. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us. I'll go to the 4UP so we can wave everybody off into the sunset. That was it. That was Sonictalk 698. Sorry about the mess with the YouTube stream URL, but we'll be back as ever doing what we do. See you next time. Take care. Bye bye now.